Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're in a situation where an AI system, while it's making a truly critical decision, maybe it's in a busy ER, helping triage patients, or perhaps it's the brain of an autonomous car navigating some sudden really complex road incident. The AI takes action, the outcome, profound. But then this vital question hits you. Why? Why did it decide that? Was it genuinely ethical, or did it just follow some rigid set of rules without, understanding the deeper stuff, the nuances? That right there, that's the infamous black box problem. And honestly, it's a huge challenge in building trust with AI. Today, we're diving deep into a really innovative solution, something called the Ontological-Ethical AI Module. It's designed to, well, crack open that black box, not just showing us what the AI did, but by embedding a sort of moral compass right into its core.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here, and frankly, a huge leap forward, is that traditionally ethical reasoning in AI, it's often been treated as an afterthought, something bolted on right at the end, almost like a patch, this module. It fundamentally changes that whole approach. It integrates ethics directly into the AI's core cognitive functions. Think of it less like giving the AI an ethical rule book and more like building its capacity for ethical understanding right from the ground up. It's about ensuring dependability, trust, by design.
Okay, so our mission for you today is to really reveal how AI can be built with this kind of inherent moral compass, moving beyond just programming rules to actually embedding a form of ethical understanding. You'll walk away with a shortcut to understanding how we can create AI that's transparent, accountable, and truly adaptable to all the real world complexities and, ethical dilemmas it's definitely going to face. So if ethics has usually been this add-on, almost an afterthought, what specific problems has that created? I mean, why can't we just tell an AI, hey, be good, follow these rules and expect it to work okay without this fancy module?
Well, that bolt-on approach, it creates pretty significant limitations, primarily a profound lack of traceability and interpretability. When ethical reasoning isn't central, the system might, stumble into a good decision, but you're left totally in the dark about why it made that choice. Was it based on robust ethical thinking? Or just, I don't know, a statistical fluke? Sands and colleagues back in 2018 really emphasized this embedding context-sensitive ethical reasoning into the core cognitive functions. That's critical for dependability and resilience. Without that deep integration, you're constantly left wondering if the AI's decisions are truly sound or if it just, well, got lucky. And that fundamentally undermines confidence, our ability to really rely on these systems, especially when the stakes are high.
Right. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting then. Because this ontological ethical module, it sounds incredibly promising for addressing those blind spots. It sounds complex, maybe, but from what we've gathered, it's brilliant in its foundation. How exactly does it manage to make ethics an integral part of the AI's intelligence, not just some external checklist?
Right. At its core, the module integrates what we call ontologies with explicit ethical categories. And here's the game changer bit. An ontology is essentially like a highly structured map of knowledge for a specific area. It doesn't just list things, it shows how they're connected. Think of it like a super smart thesaurus and relational database rolled into one. So for a medical AI, the ontology would define doctor, patient, diagnosis, treatment, and crucially, how they all relate to each other. Integrating these formal concepts and relationships with specific ethical categories. That ensures ethics isn't just a rule book, it's baked in, part of the AI's cognitive functionality from the very start. And it does this through a dual ontological classification system.
A dual classification system, huh? How does that work? Does it mean the AI sort of has two brains, one for facts and one for ethics?
Not quite two brains, no. But it's more like two interconnected frameworks within its understanding. Two parts. First, there's the categorical part. This defines the key ethical building blocks, things like fairness, harm, responsibility, the fundamentals. Then there's the relational part. And this defines the relationships between those categories, how they interact, maybe conflict. This duality is really powerful because it lets the AI distinguish between general ethical norms like the classic do no harm and specific, often messy situational obligations. The real insight here, I think, is moving beyond just teaching AI rigid rules. We're equipping it with a kind of moral imagination, letting it navigate situations where there isn't one single right answer, much like we humans do, right?
That distinction, yeah, between general norms and situational obligations, that sounds incredibly important for the real world. Things are rarely black and white. Could you maybe illustrate that a bit more with our medical AI example, perhaps?
Absolutely. Let's go back to that medical AI. A general ethical norm, a core category, might be non-maleficence, the principle of doing no harm, foundational stuff. But in a crisis, like a triage scenario with limited resources, Situational obligations might suddenly involve prioritizing certain patients to save the most lives. Even if that means, tragically, others can't be saved. The module helps the AI reason through these tough distinctions. It doesn't just blindly apply a rule, it understands the ethical categories involved, the relationships in that specific context. And crucially, this allows it to provide a reasoned explanation for its actions. Sands and colleagues pointed out that this systematic encoding via dual classification ensures accountability. It provides real interpretability to what's often an opaque process. So it's not just making a decision, it's making a justifiable ethical decision.
Okay, so it's not just a checklist. It's about understanding the spirit of the rules, how they connect, how they apply in the messy real world. That sounds, well, incredibly robust and adaptable.
Precisely, and that robustness is a massive benefit, especially for any system where dependability is just non-negotiable.
You mentioned robustness, and yeah, for anyone relying on AI for critical tasks, that's absolutely paramount. But what does it actually mean in practice? How does embedding ethics directly make these systems genuinely more dependable, more resilient when the unexpected happens? On the road or in a hospital.
Well, by ontologically classifying all the system knowledge, not just the ethical principles, but everything the AI knows about its domain, its world, the module, significantly boosts the system's resilience to unexpected stuff. This means the system can adapt dynamically to unforeseen circumstances, while still holding on to its core ethical principles. Its integrity remains. Take autonomous driving again. In real-time scenarios, reacting instantly to unpredictable things other cars, pedestrians popping out the module helps the system take these changes into account while simultaneously sticking to ethical safety principles. It's not just following a pre-programmed line on a map. Sands et al. Explicitly mentioned that including these ethical invariants within the ontology avoids the risks you get with external ad hoc ethical controls. Trying to patch ethics on afterwards. This embeds ethical control as foundational. It prevents those dependability lapses we worry about. Reflection becomes inherent, continuous, not just reactive.
That feels like a huge step towards building actual trust.
But, okay, the world changes constantly, right? New laws, evolving cultural norms, new tech. How can an AI's ethical stance possibly keep up with all that dynamic real-world change? Does it just become outdated the moment society shifts?
Not at all. That's actually precisely where the module's dynamism and adaptability really shine. It's built with the capability for updating its ethical framework at any point during its operation. Cultural, political, environmental, regulatory factors, they're always shifting. So AI systems have to be able to update their ontology in response. New knowledge, new rules. This isn't a static system. It's designed from the ground up to be responsive. Think about AI in heavily regulated areas like medical diagnosis or financial lending. They can react quickly, even autonomously, to new regulations. This allows for refining classifications, recalibrating ethical stances, basically in real time.
So this dynamism makes sure the AI's ethics don't get fossilized. But does that adaptability apply across the board? Or can it be more tailored? Like for a specific task versus a big overarching mission? Well, it can definitely adapt at different levels, both locally and globally. Local ethical stances mean recalibrating principles for individual subsystems or tasks. So within a hospital, maybe a local recalibration prioritizes resources for emergency treatments in one unit during a sudden surge. Global stances, on the other hand, relate to broader policies, recalibrating priorities across the entire system. An example might be adjusting ethical preferences regarding ecological impact across all subsystems of a large industrial AI. This ability to dynamically recalibrate at all levels, as Sands et al. Highlighted, significantly improves both flexibility and robustness. The system kind of forces us to admit that human ethics aren't static either, right? It's not just the AI adapting to our rules, it's an AI reflecting the ongoing evolution of our own societal moral compass.
Wow. So imagine an AI that doesn't just make a decision, but understands why that decision is ethical within this flexible, evolving framework. An AI that can even adjust its moral compass as the world and our understanding of ethics change around it. That is truly powerful. It hints at a whole new level of intelligent responsiveness. Okay, but one of the scariest things about AI, for many people, is the potential for bias. Creeping into decisions, often subtly, insidiously. Biases in training data, even in the algorithms themselves. Can this module really tackle that proactively, like a real-time safeguard? Or is it more fixing things after the fact?
No, it's absolutely designed to be proactive. The Ontological-Ethical Module includes an autonomous ethical AI watchdog component. This is inspired by something called Ethical Artificial Intelligence Framework Theory, or EAIFT. Its whole role is to continuously monitor the system's overall performance and actively detect and classify ethical issues as they arise. Adami in 2024 really highlighted how vital these AI watchdogs are, monitoring input data, internal processes, output decisions, identifying ethical violations. This constant independent monitoring significantly boosts accountability and transparency. It catches potential issues before they become systemic problems.
So it's like an internal ethical guardian, constantly scanning, correcting course in real time. Can you give us a quick, concrete example? How might it catch a subtle bias that other systems miss, say, in loan applications?
Precisely. This proactive bias detection component monitors, in real time, for any evidence of inequality or discrimination. It looks at the input data, the system's internal workings, and its outputs. So in a loan application system, it wouldn't just look at the final yes or no. It would monitor if, say, certain demographic groups consistently get less favorable terms, even if each individual application seems fair on its own. If it detects such a pattern, it would then apply these EAIFT strategies to mitigate those imbalances immediately, maybe by adjusting weighting factors or flagging problematic data streams. This stops biases from becoming these persistent, ingrained patterns that harm whole communities. It literally adjusts the system model in response to real-time events, correcting algorithms over time, preventing bias buildup. Adami believes these functions really increase user trust and system transparency by offering a tangible solution to that tricky ethical problem of bias.
That's a profound shift. Okay, so what does this all mean for someone actually using these systems day to day? Does it just make them, quote, more ethical, or does it also make them more understandable, like the AI can explain itself?
It absolutely makes them more understandable, and that's vital for adoption, for trust. The inherent ontological structure baked into the module. It allows the system to be transparent with users, to provide clear, human-readable explanations for how and why it reached a specific ethical conclusion. Going back to that loan example, it could explain, look, based on principle X, say, fairness and access to capital in relational category Y, maybe historical lending patterns here. This decision was made to mitigate potential bias we detected in dataset Z, providing that level of justification. It dramatically improves transparency. Adami emphasizes this is fundamental to earning user trust and making sure the system acts ethically, as intended. It directly addresses that public concern about the black box, the opaque nature of these systems, by giving you the why behind the what's.
That feels like a huge shift in our relationship with AI. It's an AI that can not only tell you what it did, but why it thought it was the right thing to do, grounded in a structured ethical framework it can actually articulate. It's like having a rational, ethical collaborator, not just a powerful, opaque tool. Okay, this is already light years ahead of just rules, but it gets even deeper, doesn't it? We're starting to talk about the AI not just following principles, but actually having intentions. That sounds almost human.
It's a critical step, yeah, towards building truly cooperative and understandable AI. By using techniques like inverse reinforcement learning with logical reward specifications, the module can explicitly identify and act upon ethical intentions. Things like do no harm, ensure justice, or maximize well-being. Instead of us having to manually program every single rule and assign fiddly numerical rewards, inverse reinforcement learning lets the AI essentially infer our broader ethical intentions. It observes desired outcomes or examples we give it. It effectively reverse engineers our moral goals into these logical reward specifications that then guide its actions. It's a much higher level of abstraction than just optimizing for a single number. Jha and Rushby highlighted this back in 2020. This capability is crucial for explicit justification of choices to a human partner and explaining the AI's behavior.
So it's not just doing something, it's doing it with a purpose we can understand and maybe even question or refine. That changes the whole conversation with the AI, doesn't it?
Precisely. These explicit ethical intentions enable genuine bidirectional communication. Instead of just telling the AI your preferences or commands, you can specify a desired ethical outcome. And the system can then explain how it plans to achieve that, maybe even negotiate if its internal ethical framework flags alternatives or potential conflicts. This capability fundamentally increases the odds of a cooperative, truly intelligent exchange between the AI and the user. It fosters a real partnership.
And it can actually remember its ethical journey, keep a sort of moral diary, a ledger of its choices over time. That sounds like the ultimate accountability tool.
That's exactly where spatiotemporal tracking comes in, creating what you could call an ethical history. By combining spatiotemporal models, which are basically ways to track things through space and time, with our ethical ontologies, using time-stamped ethical categories, well, you can develop a formal history of the AI's ethics. Think of it like a dynamic interactive map of its ethical stance across different situations and over time. A method sometimes called TimeVis Yang and colleagues in 2022 highlighted that this provides an invaluable mechanism for diagnosing and auditing the ontological model. It tells users exactly what ethical factors were considered at specific points in the system's history, ensuring its ethical stance evolved reasonably and justifiably.
So you could literally trace its ethical evolution like reading a historical document.
Right.
Wow, that changes everything for auditing, for transparency.
Exactly. By embedding ethical stances into these spatiotemporal models, any ethical changes aren't just knee-jerk reactions. They're responsive to new info, yes, but also aligned with previous decisions. It builds a coherent, traceable history of ethical actions. Decisions are no longer just reactions to the immediate moment. They're considered alongside prior decisions to achieve a desired ethical goal. Yang et al. Emphasize this helps the system act upon complex and uncertain scenarios with a consistent, traceable ethical framework. It gives it an enduring ethical character, you might say.
So for us, the users, for society, this means we're moving beyond just a snapshot of an AI's ethics. We could potentially have a full interactive documentary of its ethical evolution, explaining every moral choice and why. That's a truly revolutionary level of transparency and accountability. Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all mean for the future of AI, and maybe more importantly for our relationship with it? We've talked about a module that makes ethics central, adaptable, transparent, proactive, even gives AI intentions and a memory of its moral journey. Where does this lead?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the ontological-ethical module is really a core element of something called the Sophimatic principle. Now, that sounds technical, but it's more a philosophical approach. It's about integrating these deep philosophical ideas, ethics, epistemology, how we know things directly into the actual fabric of software development. It means we're moving towards AI that is ethical by design, woven right into its DNA, not just by accident or through clumsy external controls slapped on later. It fundamentally redefines how we build intelligent systems, from the ground up potentially with a conscience.
And this really raises a huge question for all of us, doesn't it? If an AI system can dynamically recalibrate its own ethical stance based on new information, based on societal changes, and if it can justify those changes with a detailed historical record, what new forms of accountability, what new kinds of partnership might emerge between humans and truly intelligent machines? How does that reshape our future? Something to think about.